Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you this special bulletin. When it comes to commentary channels like my own or more reputable journalists, whether it's mainstream or independent content creators, there's always discussions about leaks and inside sources and rumors. And myself, I try to preface all of those with take this with a grain of salt. You must take these things with a grain of salt. Depending on the reputation of the person reporting it, will determine how believable these rumors and leaks and inside sources are. But that's exactly what we're going to do here because, well, they're fun to talk about, especially when it's Ubisoft and the absolute dumpster fire that corporation is becoming. Over here on Smash JT, I'll have links to the respective articles down in the description box down below. Go give Smash. And I believe this one is coming from Fandom Pulse. Go give John F. Trent a good old like. Between Smash JT and John F. Trent, these are a bunch of people doing a lot of heavy lifting for the commentator community, the, I guess, reactionaries out there, getting us all kinds of information and allowing us to put it into a nice little condensed form so we can give our own little opinions to what they have to write. And dare I say, Smash, you're going to take John F. Trent's job after a little while, but let's see what they have to say. Ubisoft now pressuring Steam to remove player count tracking after historic Star Wars flop. The Star Wars Outlaws just released on Steam with, well, lackluster numbers, although the game is out on Ubisoft on PC. So how many people picked it up on Steam with the, I believe, a 25% discount? Maybe. It couldn't even break 2,500 concurrent players over the weekend, but let's see what the article has to say. Good old Smash. Even less transparency from the video game industry? Well, considering we are getting less and less transparency from mainstream Hollywood, whether it's Warner Brothers or Disney or whatnot, refusing to show the numbers, what can you expect from the mainstream so-called AAA? We still don't have concrete numbers in sales for Dragon Age, the Failguard, and I feel quite comfortable calling it that after, well, complete and total lack of information. Shocked. We're not shocked, Smash. A wild new rumor leaked from an insider to Fandom Pulse, exposing Ubisoft's dissatisfaction with Valve and Steam. Oh, you poor, poor, pitiful child. For displaying concurrent player counts on its platform. Well, regardless of what they want, Steam and Steam database, they are not like Rotten Tomatoes. I hope. They can't be bought. They can't be manipulated to stick at 86% rotten and just freeze there for days and days and days on end. So hopefully this is the closest thing to any sort of transparency we can get from video games because, as far as I can tell, Xbox and PlayStation just do not have anything like this. It would be great, be fantastic. I mean, PlayStation's already getting everyone and their grandmother to sign up for PlayStation, have a PSN account. What's wrong with displaying the numbers, the purchases? I would think it would give players and investors and, well, advertisers perhaps, maybe advertisers. I don't know what involvement they would have in the video games, but it would give people in general an idea of how successful or maybe not so successful these video games are across all platforms. See who's playing them where. How many people are playing Star Wars Outlaws on console versus Steam? Don't know. Maybe we'll never know. This transparency, let's see, Fandom Pulse. Steam for displaying concurrent. This transparency is readily available to all Steam tracking tools for third-party websites like SteamDB, which we use quite often to, half the time it's the point and laugh, the abysmal failure of a Concord, perhaps, or others like Dragon Age the Veilguard. The problem with it? Well, it publicly embarrasses the performance of many Ubisoft's titles. It's like Star Wars Outlaws to gamers, to journalists, investors, everyone, much to the company's dismay and much to our own personal entertainment. Can't have that now, can we? Oh, dear. According to the insider, again, take this all with a grain of salt, how much do we trust Fandom Pulse and John F. Trent? How much can we trust Smash JT? We are content I mean, hell, how much can you trust me? We are content creators, independent, on the social medias, on the YouTubes, on the X's, and, well, we only have our integrity as currency. Without that, well, we lose credibility. So, while you take this with a grain of salt, judge it on how much you trust the individuals that are reporting this. Ubisoft is now actively seeking to pressure Steam to discontinue its player count tracking. If this is true, I don't think it's going to turn out very well. I can imagine good old Gabe Newell going, "Ha!" and going back to drinking his tea and coffee. Ubisoft and other companies want to pressure Steam to stop the tracker from giving out info they want to keep to themselves. Afraid I've got some bad news for you. The insider explained that the concern stems from Ubisoft's desire to control how its game's performance metrics are measured, especially to investors. Well, you're going to have to give the numbers up to investors anyway, right? So why delay the inevitable? Just go ahead and rip that Band-Aid off and let us know how your quadruple A game is doing, Ubisoft. More to the quote. They want to be able to present findings to investors so they can make it sound good. Again, if you present false numbers, there's this little thing that CD Projekt Red had to deal with a few years ago called a class action lawsuit. Don't lie to your investors. Just be straight up front. Don't lie. Just be transparent. Gamers, we love transparency. Be upfront. Stop hiding your numbers. Stop hiding the fact that the game played so well on the older platforms. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. So you don't end up in trouble with your investors, or in the case of CDPR, the government that gave you the grants to make the games. The insider alleged that their efforts here are tied to the underwhelming, to say the least. To be kind, let's not be kind. It shat the bed. Sales figures with Star Wars Outlaws reportedly failing to reach 2 million copies sold. Makes you wonder, how many did Dragon Age the Veilguard sell? Reports came in that game barely broke 1 million. That's a flop. 1 million copies sold of a AAA Studios game that took 10 years to develop. Yeah, 1 million copies sold is an absolute failure. You didn't make any money back off of that, but let's continue. With Star Wars Outlaws reporting failing to reach 2 million copies, a massive shortfall given Ubisoft's own admission that AAA games require significant sales to recoup costs, upwards of 4 to 5 million. Here's an idea, Ubisoft, and this message goes out to pretty much all the major studios. And hell, even Hollywood. All the big Hollywood. You had a movie come out this year with a budget of $13 million that made hundreds of millions of dollars internationally. Talking about Godzilla -1. They didn't spend all that much money on it. Cheap cost. Even 50 million budget. Do a good show. Make a good show. Stop spending hundreds of millions of dollars, first of all, on the big budget stars, the big name stars. Sure, they'll get butts and seats, but not enough to recoup your costs. Work on the smaller games. Ones that cost 10 million, a video game that costs 10 million budget to develop and sells $100 million in copies. You've made a massive profit. And what would you need for that? What? 50 million sales, 10 million sales for a $40 game, a $20 game? Work on decreasing your budgets, increasing the story, the gameplay, the world building, the fun factor. Say it all the time, folks. Make it fun first, fuckers. Learn from that and maybe you'll start recouping some of your costs. 4 to 5 million copies to break even. These studios do not want to break even. Whether it's Hollywood, whether it's the video game industry, they're not interested in breaking even. They want a Hogwarts legacy. They want 10 million in sales, 20 million in sales over the lifespan of the game. That can justify the next project. But when you're spending $200 million over 10 years on the development of a game, even $100 million on the development of a game might be a little too much right now. Decrease the budget, increase the quality, at least compared, maybe not the quality of the graphics, but the quality of the gameplay, and you might be surprised at how much success you got. During a recent interview at XDS24, Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed executive producer Mark Alexiote revealed that the break-even point for many AAA titles falls between 8 and 12 million units. Let's try that again. 8 to 12 million units, because I know how to spec. That's ridiculous. No matter how much you slice it, even for a massive game, whether it's a Nintendo game, a Sony game, or whatever, if it requires you to sell upwards of 8 to 12 million units just to break even, you are doing something wrong. If it's not money laundering, it's unaccounted for spending, perhaps? Piss poor ability to budget your game? Spending too long to develop the game? Work on smaller scale games with a decently entertaining gameplay loop. Work on that first. Stop trying to knock everything out of the park. You're not going to be a Baldur's Gate 3 or Hogwarts Legacy from last year. You're not going to sell 15, 20 million copies of every single game you put out there. Reduce your budgets. Work on the fun factor. The reason I'm quoting the 10 million copies kind of mark is from what I've seen. Now, this is the quote from Quixote. What I've seen, and I've seen costs, our costs, and costs of competitors who all have the same overblown budgets. Everything leaks in our industry. Oh, well, isn't that an interesting little coinky-dink? So you have privileged information, but you don't want to give us the basic information of how much your game is selling. Privileged information on where the competition is going. But mostly I estimate 10 million copies, give or take 2 million, is mostly what you need to break even. That means your budget is bloated. But you have only 10 games that breach that every year. Quixote, that's a clue. Okay? That's a clue. When so few games per year, especially considering the number of studios out there, are barely any, are breaching that 8 to 12 million copies sold, but every single studio wants to spend $200 million, $150 million budget on their next AAA such and such genre killer, then, sorry, you are doing something wrong. When you add this context to the situation, it paints quite the dire picture for Star Wars Outlaws. Well, we all knew that was going to fail, especially after the early snippets of the game came out, and even with the patch where now they're removing the forced stealth from the game. Even with those patches, could be a little too late. Too little, too late. Let's see. Where were we? If Ubisoft's sales figures guesstimate requirements are accurate, the game's inability to cross even the $2 million mark exposes a significant financial loss to the company, something that they cannot really afford to have with plummeting stock prices. And of course, the fear, or maybe the merger, the inevitability of Tencent taking up the majority share of their company instead of what they have now. Taking that all into account, it makes sense that they don't want to be so publicly embarrassed. Well, I don't know. They've been pretty much publicly embarrassed one time after another, all year long. So we'll just add this one to the list, right? Maybe the best way to fix the shortfall is to remove DEI and make better games. The best way is this 3 words right here. Just make better games. Put the DEI crap in afterwards. Put it all you want to. Just don't let the game suffer for your little checkbox ideological bullshit. It's long enough in the video, I could say that. Crazy, I know, but just a thought. Yes, Smash, make it fun first, you ignorant fuckers. The trend towards hiding weak performance metrics isn't unique to Ubisoft these days. It's seen quite across the entertainment industry. Other major entertainment industries like streaming services and comics have adopted a similar style of new age reporting practices. It's called lying, Smash. It's called absolutely lying. The comic book industry has been doing it for years, trying to mix in the manga sales into their comic book sales, saying the comic book industry is doing just fine. The only reason it's doing fine is because Japanese manga is selling like hotcakes in the West. Why? Because modern Western mainstream comics are shite. For instance, the Marvel DC comics transitioned to distribution methods that obscure retailer sales, while Netflix now defines views by using confusing metrics such as total stream time divided by runtime availability. And I will say this about Netflix. I don't have a problem with their idea. It's an average. They're getting an idea. If you watch this show for 10 minutes or 20, let's say you watch an hour-long show for 30 minutes and 5 other people watch it for 30 minutes. So those 5 plus your 1, 6, that's an average of 3 hours of watch time. Maybe, unless you had millions of people watching the intro up to the title scene and then turning it off. But I don't think that's what's happening. I think of all of them, Netflix probably does it the best. May not be the best, but by comparison, I think it's the best. Looking at YouTube removing the dislike button, yeah, we fixed that anyway, without providing users with a legitimate explanation. But smash, it was to help the smaller creators, right? Even though we see the dislikes on the back end. So no one believes YouTube and why they removed the dislike button. We have our speculations, but, you know, it is what it is. We can still see the dislikes, so saying that helps the up-and-coming content creators. No, I see every single one of my dislikes. It ain't no big deal. Ubisoft tried to remove Steam's tracking tool aligns with this broader trend of controlling the narratives around success and failure, but we will always sniff out the lie, because that's what we do. We look for it, we dig, we connect the dots, and if you're like Savvy, you connect 150 million dots and try to put it in a big, massive spreadsheet and go on a nice little school lesson. Removing visibility to customers. They don't want you to know anything. Just consume. Don't ask questions. Just consume product and get excited for next product. They wish they could pull Black Myth Wukong numbers. Everybody wishes they could pull Black Myth Wukong numbers. Everyone. There's a lot of them that wish they could pull 10% of those numbers. But hey, they can't even break 100,000 on Steam over the opening weekend. But oopsie doopsie. Then they wouldn't have an issue with the info being publicly available. Isn't that interesting? If this is true, you have, and honestly, you can put this towards Dragon Age the Veilguard. If the numbers in sales for the Veilguard were 2, 3, 4 million copies, that's all you would hear about. But we haven't heard a peep, which makes me question whether or not it even sold 1 million copies. When you don't give out the numbers, when you have numbers like Black Myth Wukong saying 2 million concurrent players in peak, and you get the sales numbers, how many sales, how many copies you sold for whatever game, then you only see that when the game is doing well. But if the game does not live up to expectations, fell below projected numbers, you don't hear a peep. We have to go digging and make speculations and comparisons, or speculations based on comparisons to other games in the same genre. It's a little frustrating. It would be nice, truly, if we had more transparency. The kind of transparency that Steam charts gave us, or gives us. Something like that across all platforms, all consoles, Xbox, Sony, PlayStation, Nintendo, and whatnot. Guaranteed Nintendo is never going to give that up because, well, it's Nintendo. Do we believe this inside source? Do we honestly believe that Ubisoft would come out and try to stifle the numbers on Steam to keep Steam from displaying, well, the absolute failure that is Star Wars Outlaws? Do I believe it? I'd take it with a grain of salt, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's 100% true. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Leave a like, leave a dislike. Do all those nifty little things that YouTube is begging to do, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.